Welcome to another episode of Team Upside Talks. Today we are fortunate enough to have Hassan Raja in the house. Hassan is a truly multi-talented individual. He's a photographer, he's a historian, he's a fashion icon. He does it all. To give a very brief overview of Hassan, he is a second year history student at the University of Cambridge, and he is our very talented, very creative, very hardworking marketing director at Team Upside. This podcast is all about listening to and learning from other people's journey through education. So, without further ado, question number one. Hassan, how would you describe the kind of school that you went to?
I went to Bill High School, which is in Ilford. It's like a state comprehensive school. I think the way I would describe it, if I had to use one word, would just be big. Like I think I read an article saying that it's one of the biggest in the country because they've had this massive expansion over the last 10 years. So yeah, with that, I think it comes like the problem of getting left behind, kind of falling through the cracks, which I think a lot of people experienced. Um, and yeah, that kind of was in like all areas. So at the very top, like when you had people who wanted to do like medicine, apply to Oxbridge, all of that, but also at the bottom as well, and with people who maybe weren't that academically able. Um, so yeah, it's massive. It's a massive school.
All right, cool. Question number two. How did your attitude towards education change during your time in school?
Um, I think my attitude changed like drastically from the beginning. Like I came into year seven, and I think I messed around quite a lot. I was like okay at school, so I got by, but I treated it as a laugh pretty much. Um, but I think the thing that changed my attitude over the years was experiencing like little mini successes. So if I did well in an essay, I think, well, okay, hold on, like I can actually do this. Like there might be something in this, and that kind of inspired me to work harder. I think around year nine, maybe I had a turning point where I was like, I think I got we were doing Macbeth in English, and I got quite a good mark on an essay, which I wasn't really expecting. And I was like, oh, hold on, like um, I might be able to actually do this. So yeah, I think from then on, I just kind of tried harder, and then it was just a gradual
Okay.
increase. Once you kind of realize your capability, it kind of inspires you to push forward more and apply yourself more. Um, and yeah, I think having teachers who can inspire that in you is a really important part of was an important part of my journey.
Let's talk about teachers since you just mentioned it. So, who were some of the mentors and teachers who helped you along the way?
I think looking back is I think looking back, um, the one consistent trend I can see is that English teachers were always all of my English teachers were always like really kind of central to me, like doing better in school and being more inspired to do better. So even from year seven, like I remember we had this English teacher who I think he went to either Oxford or Cambridge, Mr. Forster, and he like it's mad. I remember so clearly having one lesson where he taught us how to use words like ultimately and furthermore, and like and the fact that that in year seven stuck out in my mind so much, and they're words that I still like bang out in my essays now.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, and then I remember in year nine, year 10 having an English teacher called Mr. Evans, and he was just like he was a good teacher, but he was also just a really nice guy, and we
Mhm.
always had fun in his lessons, and like we always ended up doing the work and doing good work as well. And that was where I had my turning point, where I was like, okay, this is actually like this could actually be my thing, English. Uh, and yeah, at A level as well, Miss Bamji, she was like amazing, and she actually helped me with my personal statement a lot as well. So yeah, I
Mhm.
think English teachers were um, the main mentors I had in school, who
Mhm.
I'm really grateful for.
I can definitely relate with that. My English teacher, Miss Rycroft, she basically was like the mum of our class. She was just kind of
Oh
like she was around 50 years old, so she was relatively middle aged. And
yeah,
I was in an all boys set, and it was the bottom set, all boys. So you can imagine the
oh
banter
man,
and you can imagine the energy in
yeah,
that room. And she used to just discipline us, and she used to kick us out of the class. And we all treated her like our mum, basically. Yeah, so English teachers and for me, history teachers as well. They were very like easy to talk to, like cool people. Uh,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
So other than your Macbeth essay in year nine, what were some of your kind of proudest achievements during your time in school?
I kind of struggle to look back and find big moments of success, other than the day of getting Oxbridge offers, which was crazy because I went into that process feeling not that confident. And I think going through it kind of raised my confidence levels massively, doing mock interviews, yeah, having to do all the stages of the application, like the admissions test and all of that. So I think that was my main success. I remember that day so vividly.
Mhm.
Like only 2 people in my year got offers out of like, I think it was must have been over 20 that applied. And of that group who applied, I kind of saw myself as at the bottom of it, just like
Really?
doing it because yeah, because why not give it a chance? So like, yeah, when the email finally came through that day, I remember I was just
Yeah.
like it was. Yeah, I think that would definitely be my number one success from school. Yeah, it was a crazy day.
So then on the other side of the spectrum, because it's very easy to look at someone that goes to a good university and think that their entire time in school was perfect. On the other side, can you maybe share a story of a time when you failed in school, or like when you basically experienced some sort of challenge that you had to overcome?
The main memory I have of failure from school was when we got A-level history coursework, which was by this point I already had the Cambridge offer,
Yeah.
and I flopped it. Like it was like 20% of the overall grade, and I got like 26 out of 40, which
Wow.
is because then if you imagine like with the grade percentages, and that's like a massive chunk already gone even before you sit the exam. Um, and like obviously you have to, you're aiming for an offer at that point. So I remember when that grade came through, I was not expecting it at all because we'd had teachers guiding us through the process. Um, and yeah, so I'd submitted it thinking it was okay. My teacher had signed it off, saying, yeah, that's good. And that mark came back, and I was devastated because I felt like I'd let it slip like
Hmm.
so early.
Hmm.
But luckily, I managed to pull it back in the exam.
Yeah.
Thank God. Uh, but yeah, that was just a real shock. I remember I was really upset that day because
Hmm.
I thought that like I'd just let it go.
Yeah.
But luckily I didn't.
Hmm. So
But yeah,
in the moment, you must have felt upset and like disappointed with yourself. But then, how did you kind of adapt? Did you start to work like much harder in preparation for the exams because they meant a lot more? How did you respond?
I think my main emotion was kind of I was upset, but I was also angry because I felt failed by the teachers who had told me that this was an okay piece of work to submit, who then also marked it and gave me that mark.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I kind of just I think anger is a useful emotion to feel like after you've failed because it
Yeah.
kind of you can really channel it into doing better. And yeah, I think that definitely kind of spurred me on because whereas before I thought getting A star AA was like so far off, like I might get it'll be great if I get it, but is it realistic? I don't know. But after that, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna get it, like I have
Mhm.
to get it, and or like I'm gonna give it my all anyway. So yeah, I think that was my response to it, which was definitely helpful. Um, but yeah, life has a funny way of working out.
Is there anything that you would change about the way that you were taught in high school and like what you were taught in high school?
I think looking at the history department at my school, specifically, we had honestly there were different teachers was like completely different ends of the spectrum. We had one teacher called Mr. Mills who was quite elderly. Well, not elderly, he was old. And he was like he used to teach us about the Crusades, and he was like obsessed with this area of history. Like he was so eccentric. He would wear bow ties, and the way he would teach history lessons was like a story. So we'd all sit there. He'd speak for the whole hour, like like he was telling us a story. And it was like honestly, it was like watching a series, and you don't know what's going to happen next lesson. So
Mm.
everyone was just gripped. I remember it was crazy. Like to the point where like you had people like spoiling it who had already had the lesson. They would
Oh,
tell you
really?
what happens in the next one. So like we had teachers like that who were just they really brought history to life, and it's mad because we just sat our history exam last week, and
Mhm.
I still use like my knowledge I have from him, from that lesson and from that folder to sit that exam. So it's crazy. But then like yeah, on the other hand, you have teachers who don't really care. Like you can tell they're not that fast. They'll read out the sheet. They'll they'll walk you through the worksheet, and then that'll be it. And they'll let you go early because they're just not that invested.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think more of that kind of teaching would benefit everyone because yeah, just bring it, especially with a subject like history, you have to bring it to life to kind of get people to engage with it.
I had a very similar experience. Like the quality of
Yeah,
teaching was just so was it just varied so much between departments. And that kind of
yeah,
nicely leads on to my next question, which is when it came to the GCSE exam year, so year 11, obviously you couldn't rely on all of your teachers to provide the best teaching. So number one, what GCSEs did you end up taking? And how did you revise for them?
okay. So at GCSEs, I did uh, German, art, design, technology. Um, what else did I do? Triple science. I don't know if that was an option. Um,
And
I did
obviously
something
history.
else. Yeah, history. That's it, of course. Um, how did I revise them? I remember at GCSE that was a mess. I just could not hack revising for like 12 different subjects at the same time, doing all those exams in the space of 2 weeks. I remember I would like, because the exams were on different days, so I'd literally use the day between to like revise, like to go over what I had. I would be doing 24-hour days and like not sleeping properly. So that's definitely not. I'm in no position to kind of tell people how to revise for GCSEs.
Mhm.
But then once we moved to A levels and it was kind of more focused, then I think I really benefited from kind of getting rid of all that noise.
Yeah.
I think that the nature of some of the subjects I did, so like art, like you can't really revise for it
Mhm.
because it's like a practical exam, but you end up putting so much time into your portfolio and you're working on your sketchbook, um, and that definitely takes away from all your other subjects. But then again, it's like fun. It's like a retreat from everything else. So you end up just putting loads of time into it.
So talk more about your
So
time at A level then, because it seems that that's when you kind of got your act together a bit more and you kind of knew what you were
yeah,
doing. So
definitely.
what A levels did you choose, and then how did you revise for your exams?
So at A level, I did English literature, history, and politics, which I think is the perfect combination because they all overlap so nicely. They're all essay subjects, so you just you just get good at churning them out. Um, I think at A level, I benefited from having really like strict teachers. I remember in year 12, for like the first 6 months, for the first half of the year, I was getting like D's and E's in history, which was like so disheartening at the time. But then I remember I did my Easter mock, and that went so badly as well. But then when it came to the real thing, I just kind of just said, okay, well, you know what, it'll be hit or miss, and I'm just gonna give it a try. And I ended up getting like a really good, really high A, which was good. So like having that kind of like teachers who wouldn't like gas you up too much was good. And I think it's what I needed. I think it's kind of what I need now as well because I feel like I struggle with complacency. So when I get like a good grade, it's like I kind of go off that and I get a bit lazy. So yeah, that is kind of was consistent across all three subjects in A level. But yeah, it did motivate me to work harder and just work on my writing style. And yeah, I think I did quite well in the end.
When it comes to history and especially English, from what I've heard, they're very content heavy subjects. So how did you kind of like try to navigate that?
Oh man, for history, I had like a timeline. I had these three different timelines on my wall where I like it took me ages to do, but it was so helpful because it was just always there. So we had different units for one of the papers we did Native American history, African American history, women's rights, and this was in the United States. So I had these separate timetables. So I guess I don't know if I'm a visual learner, but that did help me. Um, and then for all of them, I think writing essays and putting the content into practice, how I would do it in the exam, really helped me because it meant when it came to the exam and I had a question, I was so good at recalling it in like a essay format, and that's something I'd recommend to everyone. Obviously, it might not be for everyone, but giving that a try because teachers, you know, you can like say what you want, but like I feel like most teachers will want to help you,
Yeah.
and if you give them essays to mark, they'll usually give it back. And I was lucky that I had teachers who would do that. So I would just like every day bring in a different essay. They would give it back, like kind of perfect the process of writing them. That's what I think was my key to success at A level.
Yeah, I would 100% echo exactly what you said. Like if you're a teacher and a student is kind of like clearly showing enthusiasm, obviously you want to help.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
so yeah, I definitely recommend students to just write as many essay plans as possible and just hand them into your teacher. Yeah, that's some good
Because I
advice.
think you see a lot of people writing. I think at GCSE there's like a tendency to write out pages and pages of notes and highlight it all and make it look pretty. But I think being able to recall it in the exam, and like write it down quickly without having to think too much about how you're going to structure an argument. If it just can come to you naturally, then I think that's such a valuable thing.
Cool. So we're approaching the final two questions. So the
Okay.
penultimate question is, you clearly had a passion for English. You've mentioned it like a few times now. So why did you end up choosing history to study at uni?
I think I liked English, but I didn't like enough of it. Like the process of like analyzing literature kind of excited me at A level because I thought, I don't know about you, but you can waffle so easily. Like you can take a specific word and reach so far and say it means all these different things. So like it's easy to be good at, but the content didn't always excite me, and I knew that doing a degree in it, I'd have to be like engaging with all this stuff that like I didn't really care about. Whereas with history, I think it's a lot. I find it a lot more exciting. And it's weird because I did better in English than I did in history. I got an A star in English literature and I got an A in history. So yeah, but yeah, I think history was always just more exciting to me.
All right, cool. So we've made it to the final question. And this is a bit of a big one, so take some time
Okay.
to process this one. So Hassan, question number 10, what does education mean to you?
I think being at uni and maybe I think it's probably all unis, but my experience at uni, like education and learning has been so heavily um, based around reading and like getting through 10 books in a week and then like trying to string something together and that kind of touches on everything you've read. Um, and to me, education and learning is like so much more than that. Because when I think about the things that have inspired like my interest in history, it's been like TV, it's been travel. Like I think part of the reason I love European period where the Crusades took place was also not just because I had an amazing teacher, but it was because traveling to Istanbul, formerly Constantinople, and seeing all that preserved history. That's kind of why it stuck so much in my mind. Watching different programs like documentaries, also like kind of fictional like reenactments. I think that's been so integral to like fostering my interest. So yeah, I think that's kind of where my mind takes me when I think about that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a really nice answer.
what does it mean to you? Let me flip the script.
What does it mean to me? I think, the common phrase like knowledge is power. That's what comes to my
Yeah,
mind. You know what I mean? Like when I think about education, I'm just thinking about kind of becoming your best self, your true self. Like because with education and with all of the knowledge that it gives you, you're more kind of confident in who you are. I mean, not like your
definitely. Yeah,
identity and everything about the way you navigate life is just you're just a lot more sure of yourself.
and I think as a history student as well, kind of, it sounds so cliche to say, to those who like understand the past can predict the future and all that, but like I think kind of appreciating what's at stake when we're at pivotal moments in history, like now, like what with everything that's happening now, being able to look back and understand like kind of the weight of like the situations that people found themselves in, yeah, during these pivotal times. I think being able to understand that is so important moving forwards, and I think that's a lot of what our role is as historians.